All right, let's talk about this ambassador of hip, the red-topped VOX Continental organ. When did it come out? 1962. JMI Instruments introduced this. Jennings Musical Instruments, founder of the company, Tom Jennings. Interesting story about this. It was really meant to be an affordable alternative to lugging around giant B3 organs with Leslie cabinets for touring bands and musicians. They succeeded in that. It would easily sit upon this beautifully designed and very sleek chrome Z stand is what they called it. Later on, the stand changed into different points. But the interesting thing for me, at least, and I'm not a keyboard player per se, of course, but what I like about the history of the Continental is it's truly a continental instrument in the sense that it was developed originally in Dartford, Kent, England, and then it came to Southern California, and then it actually went to Italy and was manufactured there. There was only about 9,000 of these ever made, and there are sort of 3 iterations of them. The original English Continentals used germanium transistors, but by the time that they went to America, that was replaced with better electronics and a switch to silicone. But then, after it left America and went to Italy, it went back to germanium. The silicone ones are certainly the ones that were recorded the most in the United States, obviously, because they were being made there at the time. So when you think of the Doors, like, Light My Fire and all those classic Vox Continental solos from Ray Manzarek, you're hearing the silicone version of that. Here's one thing that I learned I had no idea about until I bought this book by Alan Lenhoff and David Robertson called Classic Keys. It's a beautiful tome. It goes through, everything, Rhodes, Worley, B3, clavinets, and so on and so forth. There were only about 100 single manual Vox Continentals made in Dartford, Kent. And at that time, they would outsource everything. So they would get the manuals from one company, they would get germanium transistors from another company, they would get all of their wire for the spooling from another, and so on and so forth, and just assemble it ad hoc as needed. One of the key components, though, was actually the wiring of all the electronics, and that was done in a very interesting place. So I'm going to read you a passage out of this book. Female psychiatric patients at Stonehouse Hospital in Dartford, Kent, assembled the complex wiring looms for many of the UK-built Continentals. It was founded in 1862 as the City of London Lunatic Asylum, which was a very Victorian, secure, drab, horrific place. Nevertheless, the assemblers, which he calls in the book the Ladies of the Loom, which I think is a wonderful title and probably a great name for an alternative band, would leave their names, little hang tags at the back of the spool that would say something like Jean or Carol or Jasmine. And I think that that's just a fascinating thing because the electronics were sound. Nevertheless, as the Vox started to migrate its way towards Southern California for economic reasons and to keep up with demand, it landed in the U.S., all those germanium transistors were eschewed and silicone transistors were used instead. It has much more of a consistent sound and isn't as sputtery and as granular as we all know that germanium fuzz can be, which is a good thing too. But they are temperamental and they are sensitive to temperature change. The model that you're looking at is actually an American one, and this would have been made in Sepulveda, California, which is near LA, by Thomas Organ and Company. And they only made about 1,000 of these units before it was eventually shipped, production and everything else, to Italy, where it went back to germanium, and then double manual Vox Continentals were starting to be made. One of the telltale signs of an American-made Vox is that fact that you've got wooden keys with the plastic coating on it, and then you also have the oscillator circuit boards that are very rectangular and tan-colored. This is an early way to package sort of multiple components onto a single circuit element. And that helped with the speed of production, according to Lenhoff's book. An interesting note is that for a Vox Continental, all the oscillators are working full blast all the time. The only reason why you don't hear every note on the keyboard playing is because it relies on a contact mechanism whereby when you press the key itself on the keyboard manual, that's what makes contact and establishes a perfect circuit with that particular pitch and allows it to come out the audio path. Let me take you through the controls, especially with the drawbars here on the VOX Continental. What's kind of cool about this looks like an M, but it's actually not an M. It's supposed to be a sawtooth wave. This is going to be your sine wave. So this is your reeds, and this is your flute types of stops. And then you have your 16-foot, 8-foot, 4-foot, and then 4, which is like an overtone blend. So if you're going to play like a normal type of a chord, or here's like a D major. Just the flutes. Here's just your bass, which is kind of cool for me. It sounds kind of like a, you know, kind of a cool retro game console type of sound. If you start adding in some other overtones, and then of course you can add in some more, and then you add in this, and that's where the real VOX sound really starts to come in, is using this. If I strip all these out, pull it down, add a little vibrato, pretty cool. Now if you switch it and go straight to the reeds, very harsh. So you can blend the two and get a little more of a classic VOX sound. So there you go. Those are the manuals and the great vibrato that you come to know and love on a VOX Continental. All right, spend some time with this playlist because I think you're going to get a real good idea of the flexibility and the capability of the VOX Continental, but you'll also really bake this sound into your noggin. So the next time you hear something like that, you'll go, I know exactly what that is. It's a VOX Continental. I'll see you next time.